the community.
Hey, Equity
Hi, I
Mate.
just had a question.
Hey, Bryce, I've got a question.
All right, Bryce. So we've got a question from the community. I think about a week ago, you said as a throwaway comment when you were talking about...
It wasn't throwaway, but yeah.
Okay. Well, you said as a passing comment,
Yeah.
as in like we didn't explain it, your investment in an active small cap manager.
Yep, fair right.
You made a passing comment that got tongues a wagging, people are talking, and Daniel sent this message in.
Nice.
Hey, Bryce and Ren. I've got a question for you guys from Monday's show last week. You said investing in a small cap index is not the way to go when you want small cap exposure. And I was just wondering why that is, if you could give me a bit more info on that. Cheers, boys. Love the show.
Thank you, Daniel, for the question. Just a reminder before we answer it, if you have a question you want us to answer or an expert to answer, the best way to get it answered on the show is to record it as a voice note. The link is in the show notes.
Yes.
So, Bryce, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, look, I can understand why this might be confusing given how often we talk about the positives of investing in the index
Yes.
and why taking the index is often more than enough.
Some argue that we speak about it too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this
we're
is...
the index boys, not the island boys.
Oh, that is a rich vein of content right there.
But when it comes to investing in indexes in the small cap market, there are two major problems. The first is that big companies that are falling, they fall into these indexes. Yeah. And the small companies that are rising end up rising out of the index. And so what you're left with is an index of good companies that are becoming worse and small companies that are becoming better, and then they all leave.
Yeah. And I think you said that the first problem, big companies are falling and they fall into the indexes. They fall into the biggest positions on these indexes.
Yes.
Because they fall into the top.
Yeah.
And you don't want that, because then your biggest holdings in those indexes, the ones that will ultimately move the indexes more than the smaller holdings, are on a falling trajectory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I get it. Like conceptually, when you're first starting out investing and you think, oh, I want access to the small caps, but I don't want to make the decision about choosing which ones, you naturally think, oh, getting the Russell 2000 or whatever it is, the 2000 small caps, it makes sense. Then I'm just going to get them all moving together. But 1,500 of them might be garbage.
Yeah.
And you're not really actually getting the quality companies within those 2,000, which is why, back to that episode, I've chosen to get active management in this space.
I think the thing that we've learned over the journey, we might be the index boys, but small caps and emerging markets, if you want to play in that space, you have to go active management.
Yeah.
And you don't have to play in that space. I think that's important to say. Like, you can build heaps of wealth, large caps, indexes, developed markets, you're all good.
Yeah.
But if you want small cap exposure and emerging markets, either you need to be discerning or you need someone to be discerning on your behalf.
Yeah.
And I think if we go back to like the first principles of indexes, why they're so powerful, we've been doing this series with iShares by BlackRock and we've been calling them elegant.
Yeah.
Like, let's just stop and think about why we like large cap market weighted indexes. First of all, they give you more of the good and less of the bad through these rebalances.
Yeah.
But small cap and medium cap indexes don't do that. They don't rebalance to give you more of the good and less of the bad because of what we just spoke about. The great companies that rebalance out of an index, and companies that are falling will rebalance into an index.
Yeah.
So like you often will get more of the bad and less of the good. So that's one. The second thing that we really like about indexes is that you can cut your losers completely. Companies that are falling or just are not keeping up with the overall growth of the market will literally fall out of the index. The ASX 200, if you fall out and you're the 201st company, we no longer own you. We no longer want to hear from you. But that's not the case with small cap indexes, unless you go really tiny. But you can fall a long way before you fall out of a small cap index. And then the third thing is that large cap market weighted indexes like the ASX 200, you capture the majority of a company's growth for those like few generational companies that like move the whole overall market forward. You know, you might get in at a couple of $100 million market cap, and as you go to a $20 billion company, you know, like we spoke about REA earlier in this episode, like the majority of their growth journey, they were in the ASX 200, and people who invest in the ASX 200 got the benefit of that.
Yeah.
And that just isn't the case with small cap indexes. Like, to extend the REA Group analogy, you might get its first couple of $100 million of market cap when it's a small and then a mid cap, but it eventually graduates out and goes into another index. So you miss out on the majority of those great companies' growth.
Yeah.
So for those three reasons, I would say everything that makes large cap market weighted indexes so great is not present with small cap indexes.
No. So let's put some examples to this. So there's the S&P ASX Small Ordinaries Index. It's returned 5.84% over the past 10 years. If you compare that to the ASX 200, 7.9% in the same period.
Yeah, and that's not including dividends.
Yeah.
And obviously the ASX 200 is pumping out more dividends than the small
Definitely. Then there's the US Russell 2000, one of the most well-known small cap indexes over in the States. It's returned 7% for the past 10 years, but the S&P 500 is 12.9% in the same period. And then the MSCI UK Small Cap Index, 1.8% for the past 10 years per annum. And the FTSE 100 has returned 6.2% for the past 10 years.
Yeah, so that's Australia, the US, and the UK, and a similar story emerges there. And look, like, don't get us wrong, like the small cap indexes are generating growth.
Yeah. You could look at those numbers we just said and said the Russell 2000 7% for 10 years. Like,
yeah, like fine, that's
great.
good. That's good. It's just that the large cap indexes outperform because they're more fit for purpose. They're more fit for the index style of product than small caps.
If you were to look at, I would imagine if you were to look at some of the best performing small cap managers, or even that there'd be outperformance there.
Honestly, as we were putting this episode together, all I was thinking was, if I ever became a fund manager, why would I choose large cap equities to benchmark myself against?
Yeah.
It's just such a harder benchmark to jump. Whereas if I was like a UK small cap manager, 1.8%, like the alpha that you're generating and then the fees that you generate on that outperformance.
I know.
Anyway, different story for a different day.
Yes, but good question. Thank you, Daniel. I hope that has answered it for you. The takeaway as well is, as we've said plenty of times on this show, there are a number of good active managers who are coming to the market with listed ETFs. For active managers, the options are becoming more for us.
Equity mind.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.